Whether or not Thor: Love and Thunder is a masterpiece is up to debate. Some loved it, some didn't. That's expected though, but nearly everyone loved the standout performance, Christian Bale's Gorr the God Butcher. We loved his goth vibe, and he's severely underutilized in our opinion, but that's what makes him more terrifying. So, in this video, we're taking a look at what makes Gorr the perfect MCU villain and why. Let's dive in. First up, Gorr is arguably the best thing about Love and Thunder. Taika Waititi hyped him up to a fever pitch before the movie came out. Everyone thought that Gorr would end up decimating all the gods Marvel's introduced in the MCU so far. Well, we get to see that a little bit at the beginning of the movie. His first kill is his own god, Rapu, followed by a string of other gods, including Falagar the Behemoth. It's obvious that you don't mess with the God Butcher. And then there's his tragedy, which grounds the movie right at the beginning. He suffers a lot, and he'd be fine with that if it were just him, but his daughter, Love, suffers with him. He begs Rapu to provide shelter and rain, but his prayers fall on deaf ears, and then Love dies in his arms from hunger and thirst. That's not the trigger that pushes him over the edge though. It's the god Rapu lounging in an oasis, gorging on food and drink, while his people suffer or die, and he's totally cool with that. In fact, he flexes his godliness on Gorr. So we get why he takes an oath to kill all the gods in the universe, and it's arguably more sensible than, say, killing half the life in the universe. We're looking at you, purple guy. Now, in Bale's hands, Gorr is a more compelling villain than we'd like to admit. Actually, we'll admit it, we were on his side the whole time. Not the killing bit, but we understood his motivations, and we wanted him to get his revenge against those who left him and his family for dead. And then there's his creepy as hell smile. His teeth look like death, and you can safely assume he smells like rotting meat. While everything's all sunshine and rainbows, Gorr has a gothic elegance to him. He walks like royalty. He's even got jokes. Bale could easily have phoned it in and let the makeup and visuals do the talking, but he didn't. He was as committed as we've ever seen him in any role. But honestly, he's just a man pushed to the edge. Okay, hear us out on this one. Gorr's backstory is as tragic as anyone else's in the MCU. Wanda, Helmut Zemo, Killmonger, Thanos, Wilson Fisk. There's a whole catalog of villains to choose from, but Gorr just feels more authentic. He's a compelling villain right up until the end, when he makes a wish to get his daughter back. In a way, he trades his life for hers, and asks that Thor take care of her like his own. And a part of Gorr lives on in his daughter long after he's gone. Now, fans are gonna argue that his comic origins are far more compelling. He suffers the loss of his parents, his wife, and 2 of his children. But Love and Thunder didn't need to show us all of that in order to understand his pain. The opening scene was more than enough to get us on his side. He starts off as a weak, nearly dead worshiper of Rapu, but the Necro Sword turns him into a gothic badass with the power to slay all the gods in the universe. We empathize with him, right up until he uses Asgardian children to lure Thor into a trap, which was totally not cool. But when the god of thunder flies to Omnipotent City and asks the gods for help, Zeus kicks him out, and then we understand Gorr's point. Yes, he's got children captive in a cage, but he's also proven that gods just don't care. Except of course Thor, Jane Foster, Valkyrie, and Korg. Now, he's not just a butcher all day. The man can empathize too. Nearly every scene with Bale is a standout. Whether he's monologuing, smiling, or fighting Thor and Valkyrie, he's an absolute powerhouse to be reckoned with. But one scene in particular made us believe that he's not just blindly butchering gods. He's got personality. He can read people easily, and he can manipulate them by mirroring empathy. He speaks to Valkyrie about losing her sisters in a war that God started. He even senses that Jane's dying just like him, but is fascinated by the way she chooses to spend her last moments. He can be remarkably sincere, and he's like a villain out of a horror thriller. Whether you like the movie or not can be argued with, but there's no denying that Bale's Gorr was terrifying. People say Multiverse of Madness is the MCU's first horror-themed movie, and they're right, but we think Gorr's scenes alone could give Wanda and her monsters a run for their money. There's just something creepy about Gorr slowly crawling out of the shadows. His eyes glow a fiery orange, and his face looks like a skull under certain lighting conditions. He's an example of someone pushed to the brink of madness and revenge. Unlike Thanos, who was drawn to nihilism and the idea of balancing the universe. Gorr was once a hopeful and utterly devoted man. He went from being a god worshipper to a god butcher in a matter of seconds, and all because the god Rapu spit on his suffering. And that's what makes Gorr such a scary villain. Plus, you know, the goth vibe has a huge effect on making him look menacing. Speaking of horror, Bale got inspired by Nosferatu. Yep, the 1922 horror classic that inspired a million other variations of Dracula. In a promotional interview for the movie, Bale revealed that Nosferatu was one of his main influences for the character, and you can totally see it in his pasty skin and sharp teeth. Plus, his black and white aesthetic adds to the classic horror vibe. And if you look at Bale's expressions and body language, it's strikingly similar to Nosferatu, adding to the air of creepiness surrounding him. He's the exact opposite of Thor's peace-seeking, chilled-out persona. You can even imagine their playlists. Thor's would have had more 80s glam rock and 70s classics, while Gorr would have, like, death metal. Now, guess who else influenced Bale's performance? Kate Bush. You know, death metal's one thing, and Gorr would probably listen to it while thinking of the next god to kill. But Christian Bale, on the other hand, found inspiration in Kate Bush. And get this, he even wanted to include a dance number in the movie, but Taika shot that idea down. Something about a black and white gothic god killer doesn't match with a poppy dance sequence set to a Kate Bush track. But Gorr's fighting style was partially influenced by her. When he's fighting Valkyrie, he makes low swooping lunges and twists, which seems similar to Bush's moves in her Wuthering Heights music video. Check it out for yourself. We loved it. And we love how Gorr isn't clad in armor and doesn't have much in terms of protection other than the Necro Sword. He ducks and weaves in a fight and gracefully dances around the battlefield. It's much different than anything Thor's had to face so far. Bale was also inspired by Aphex Twin's music video for Come to Daddy. The video shows a pasty-skinned monster terrorizing an old lady, and Bale probably thought that Gorr should act along the same lines. Hey, if it worked for Aphex Twin, it'll work for the MCU. And finally, Gorr has a fitting redemption arc. It's not easy to execute a satisfying redemption arc for a villain, especially one who kidnaps children to lure the hero into a trap. We can empathize with Gorr all we want, but at the end of the day, he's killed countless innocents in his war against the gods. He's even killed innocent gods who didn't deserve it. If Taika just wrote a simple ending that absolved him of his sins, the ending would fall apart. He even won in the end. He was the first one to reach eternity, but after speaking with Thor, he realizes that even a god as mighty as Thor Odin's son would rather spend his final moments with his loved ones than fight him, and that makes him choose love. And by love, we mean his daughter. Instead of giving in to the slippery slope of revenge, his wish is to resurrect his daughter. What makes it genuinely moving is that he asked Thor to take care of her once he dies. The turning point in Gorr's story isn't his wish to bring back love, it's his giant leap of faith when he trusts the word of a god again. When Jane promises that his daughter will always be protected, Gorr witnesses the love she and Thor share. He's deeply moved by it, and he starts to trust again. Gorr dies not as a god butcher, but a father who loves his kid, and this adds a whole new meaning to Love and Thunder, right? Gorr gets back his love, and Thor finds a new purpose in his life. He protects love in the best way possible by teaching her to protect herself. And that's a wrap, folks. Thanks for watching. So what's your take on Gorr the God Butcher? And where do you rank him among the MCU's roster of villains? Tell us down in the comments. And as always, be sure to give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on more awesome content. See you in the next one.